As the Bank of Canada seemingly approaches an interest rate hike as early as this month, it also appears that Canadians are losing consumer confidence and confidence in their own ability to make their payments, which means there could be a recession right around the corner as soon as the Bank of Canada starts making interest rate hikes. The definitive guide on how to manage your credit: product, penalty, price, in that order. It's never been more important to get your mortgage right. All right, so welcome back. Lots of news today as the Bank of Canada releases their Business Outlook survey, as well as their Consumer Expectation survey, and Myers Norris Penny, one of the big accounting firms in Canada, releases their Consumer Confidence survey. We're going to go through all of that, discuss what's going on and what could lead to the very next recession, and if Canada's economy has flipped. I'm also going to talk a little bit at the end about how you can prepare for an economy that may not be as consumer friendly as the one the last 2 years has been. But before we get into it, do me that favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and please hit that like button so more people like you can see this video. And don't forget about our race to 25,000 subscribers, where when we hit 25,000 subscribers, we will give away $5,000 to one lucky winner. But in order to win, you have to be subscribed. So go ahead, click that subscribe button. It's free, it's easy, and it's definitely worth it. And don't forget about that Secrets to Getting the Lowest Interest Rate course, which is still on sale because we are looking to have 1,000 Canadians go through that course this year. It answers all of those questions about how to get the lowest interest rate, what the difference between a discounted mortgage and a non-discounted mortgage is, how to negotiate with your bank, how to negotiate with your broker, and how to make sure that you absolutely get the best rate, but also get the right product so you don't end up stepping on some sort of really expensive landmine or surprise somewhere down the road. It is priced so affordably that we suspect that most people will get 10 to 50 times their money back at least. And if you decide, hey, we just want Mortgage 360 to help us with that mortgage, well, we'll give you 10 times your money back in a credit towards your next mortgage. So you can go to ratesecrets.ca to get that course. And on that note, let's get into the video. So let's talk first and foremost about everything that's going on in the economy right now. First and foremost, the expectation is that the Bank of Canada is probably going to raise rates even sooner than expected, with about 70% of the market pricing in a rate hike on January 26th, which coincides with their monetary policy report that will be released that day. And it's my opinion at this point in time that they're probably going to shock Canadians and increase interest rates by at least 25 basis points, especially in the event that the CPI numbers come in at higher than 4.7% for January. So I'm starting to believe that they're going to make the changes sooner just because of the amount of pressure and the general amount of acceptance there would be for an interest rate hike. Now, keep in mind that when we start talking about interest rate hikes, the economy and people in general start seeing things like high inflation, and they start to become real accepting of something like an interest rate hike when you see that inflation number go higher and higher and higher. In fact, the expectation no longer becomes, hey, the Bank of Canada is going to move interest rates later. It becomes, the expectation is they need to do something now. And I think that's more or less where we're at. But I want to take you in and I want to show you a few things, because first and foremost, the Bank of Canada released their Business Outlook survey today, which has many Canadian firms basically saying that they are experiencing, in a lot of cases, supply chain issues as well as labor issues, and that a lot of firms are starting to invest in future growth in the economy and therefore in their businesses. So you can go and take a look at this on the Bank of Canada's website here, but just want to show you a couple of the quick graphs here. First and foremost, about 3/4 of firms see labor shortage intensifying. Intensity of labor shortages, you can see, is at pretty much an all-time high going back to the beginning of the year 2000. And you can also see that, the labor shortage is pretty high. We haven't seen a labor shortage like this since leading up to the financial crisis in 2008 and 2009. So we've got this pretty big labor supply shortage. And we've also got a lot of companies experiencing pretty substantial bottlenecks in labor. So if you take a look here, firms with labor bottlenecks is the yellow number, and firms with supply chain bottlenecks is the blue number. What you can see is 40% of companies are having some sort of supply chain bottleneck, and about 60% are having some sort of labor bottleneck, which means that there is a whole bunch of things that need to start happening. First and foremost, labor shortages are going to lead to higher wages in all likelihood, which in most cases coincides with the amount of inflation that there is in the economy. People will start moving around from job to job in order to get higher wages. And then you also see that with the supply chain bottlenecks increasing more and more and more all the time, that is having a pretty big impact on inflation. And what you can see here is as we get into the fourth quarter, it's only getting worse. Now, the hope here is that with the Christmas season, you saw those bottlenecks ramp up. And with things kind of cooling out after the Christmas season and that consumer season, we'll start to hopefully see some of the supply chain bottlenecks work themselves out. Now, that combined with Canadians starting to lose a little bit of confidence is probably going to mean that we're going to start to see things get a little bit back to normal. At least one hopes that. The Canadian financial confidence plunges to record low. This is from the Myers-Norris-Penny Consumer Debt Index. I'm going to take you straight into that Canadian debt index because it's really interesting data here. Because while the Bank of Canada's Canadian Survey of Consumer Expectations talks about inflation and wage growth, this talks about the issues that people are having with their debt. And what it says here, and I pulled out a couple of highlights, is about 46% of Canadians, so nearly half of Canadians, report that they are $200 or less from not being able to meet all of their financial obligations at month end. So in other words, half of Canadians are starting to have debt problems because prices are getting higher. They're continuing to spend like they were in 2020 and 2021 when things seem to be going really, really good. And what that is doing is that is putting people in a bind. And as interest rates start to increase and there becomes less money available in the economy, that is going to make those binds even harder and harder and harder, which means as people stop being able to spend or they help having a likelihood of spending, that could lead to, combined with an interest rate increase, more recessionary pressure. And my expectation and my belief at this point, looking at the data, is very similar to what Elon Musk said a few months ago, or at least last month, I believe it was, where he said his gut feeling is that there will be a recession sometime late 2022 or early 2023. And I'm going to go ahead and say that that's pretty much in line with my gut feeling as well, not because it's Elon Musk's gut feeling. I'm anything but an Elon Musk fanboy, but when I start to look at the numbers and the data and I see consumer sentiment go down with at the same time where we can kind of start to see is that consumer sentiment goes down, spending will go down, demand will go down, and the supply chain issues will start to work themselves out, not because the supply side works itself out, but because the demand side starts to take care of it and less demand allows supply to catch up, which could lead to, like Kathy Wood suggested, those deflationary pressures and therefore subsequently a recession and subsequently lower interest rates again in the future. Now, that's kind of my thought process where I'm at right now based on the data that we have. So I also went and looked to see if we could find anything else to support that. And if you go and you take a look at the Bloomberg Nanos data, well, their data supports what Myers-Norris-Penny is saying. And what that says is that consumer confidence is coming down, and it's coming down substantially. In fact, it's pretty close to the same level that it was last February. So this run up in throughout 2021 where things seem like they were really good, it seems like people are starting to find themselves in a position where they are less adamant about the fact that they're in a really good position and are starting to feel the pinch of more debt, higher prices for things, and wages that aren't exactly growing at the same pace that prices are going up. So at the end of the day, the way I'm looking at this is this. We're going to start to see interest rates go up. We see consumer confidence waning, which if those two things kind of collide at the same time, that could lead to the brakes being hit really hard on the economy. And therefore, we may not see a ton of interest rate increases, although it's anybody's guess at this point. But here's what I would do. And I think it's always important that I leave you guys with advice on what to do going forward in the event that the things that we talk about in these videos actually come to fruition. And, first and foremost, I would be making sure that I'm eliminating any sort of vehicle debt. Just get rid of the car payments, because for most people, that is the single easiest way to open up cash flow. And it doesn't mean don't have a car. It just means don't go out and buy an Audi or a BMW or a really expensive vehicle that you have to take a loan on and have a $500, $600, $700 a month payment on, or $1,000 a month payment on. It means just go and get that cash flow freed up by not having a big loan. Maybe you buy a cheaper car, maybe you buy a used car, but get rid of the loans for car loans and then go about trying to free up as much cash flow as possible. That's why we're still recommending variable interest rates. It's because variable interest rates, at least right now, allow you to take a bunch of cash and set it aside. In the event that interest rates do start going up, you then have it available for you. And then on top of that, just go through your finances, get rid of the subscriptions you don't need, get rid of all of the things that you're spending money on that you don't need to be spending money on a regular basis. Maybe the things that are keeping you a little bit heavier around the waist that are costing you an extra amount of money. Maybe it's a good time to get rid of those as well. In fact, if you want to go and have a quick view of the 5-day down payment challenge that we put together, the down payment challenge obviously is for people who are trying to get a down payment, but we put in a whole bunch of ways to save money and make more money in that down payment challenge that apply to pretty much anybody. So you can go to downpaymentchallenge.ca, you can sign up for that. Forget about the fact that it's for people who are trying to save a down payment, and just take some of the advice and some of the lessons that we teach in that course in order to help you get to a more financial and stable future. And by the way, when they do start to increase interest rates, don't go and panic and lock in your mortgage, because there's still this big gap between where interest rates are now and where you would be locking in. Now, the way you have to assess this is, again, based on the dollar value between the payment that you have now and the payment that you would be having if you were to have that 5-year fixed mortgage that's locked in. And at the end of the day, you also need to assess your personal risk factor, and you need to assess whether or not that difference in payments is worth it to you in order to know that your interest rate is going to be the same for the next 5 years. And also if you think that interest rates are going to go up substantially enough that you would be in a worse off position by having a variable rate over a fixed rate. But that is a question and an answer that you need to ask for yourself and answer for yourself. So at the end of the day, this is all about cash flow. Right now, the name of the game for all Canadians should be, how do I open up more cash flow, get rid of my payments, get rid of my credit card debt, and how do I make sure that I have money set aside for a rainy day that could very much be coming very soon, either in the form of higher interest rates or reduced consumer confidence, and therefore a recession that affects the entire country. So if you found this video useful, if you found that there were a few good tips that you could implement yourself, go ahead, click that subscribe button, click that notification bell. Please hit that like button so more people like you can see this video. Don't forget about that race to 25,000 subscribers, and we'll see you on the very next one. Cheers.